Hello everyone. Welcome back to Scott's TCGs. Adam here as always, bringing you another deck list. We're on the run up to the Treasure Cup. It's this week, well, it starts at the end of this week on the Saturday, Sunday. If you're watching this in the future, like early February 2023. Super excited. I've already done a Zorro deck list, so I'm bringing you a Eustass Captain Kid deck list today. This is the deck that I primarily play. I've done a lot of testing and stuff around it, and it's not the most, what's the word that you would use? Meta, I don't think. I see a lot of Eustass Kid decks with a lot of Lands of Wano cards in there, but I don't really like them that much. I don't think they play into the synergy of the deck. So I've tried to keep it more Supernovas based. There are some Lands of Wano cards in there, some that just the power of them can't be denied, but otherwise, you know, I kind of like to keep the theme, and I've had a lot of success with this. The main sort of theme or goal with this deck for me is just keep flooding the board with blockers. Don't do it to the point where you get down to a low number of cards in your hand, because eventually what you want to do is get out the 8-cost character Captain Kid, which we'll talk about soon, and then just sit behind him so you can't be attacked, and use the blockers to divert all of your attacks, and just keep swinging 1 or 2 checks a turn, sometimes 3, because you'll be using the Leader Kid's effect to restand in the late game to get those final checks in. But yeah, the worst sort of matchup for this, I think, is Kaido. Because you focus on flooding the board, as soon as they bring down that 10-cost Kaido, all of your hard work and cards are gone. You can play around it by not flooding the board, obviously, being a little bit more conservative, only playing down 1 or 2 blockers at a time. They will eventually play that Kaido down, because it helps to, first of all, clear whatever you have out, and it just helps to reset the game with the tempo in their favour, because they've got a really big 12k beater dude that you're going to struggle to beat over, because they're going to keep it alive. So yeah, every other sort of deck, I think you pair quite nicely into it. This is one of the stronger decks of OP1. And yeah, let's get right into it. So obviously, you've got your Leader Kid. Once per turn, you can rest 3 Dawn and trash a card in your hand to restand him, so you're getting 2 swings a turn. I would be using this early game for early game aggression, and late game for late game aggression. Mid game, you want to focus on getting more cards out onto your field, getting more characters out, and playing some option, or rather event cards. So yeah, also the artwork on him is super sick. I've got the pre-release version, which is also quite nice. As always, we're playing 4 of the 1-cost blockers, Capone. Just keep putting him out as often as you can. It's helpful to keep them back sometimes for late game blocks, but some cards get around it. But over and all, a good card. Play 4 of them. 4 copies of Bonnie, your other 1-cost. Activate main, so you play her out for 1, and then you rest the Dawn, and you get to search your top 5 for a Supernova type card. She can search herself. You can search any Supernova, including event cards, so keep that in mind. And then put the cards on the bottom of your deck in any order. You don't need to reveal the cards that you put onto the bottom. You only need to reveal the card that you take. So just keep that in mind. Your opponent doesn't need to know what you're putting on the bottom and in what order. It's giving them a bit too much information that they can then use against you. So you don't need to do that, so don't worry about it. We're playing 4 of the 2-cost killer because he's super good. Give him a Dawn, and when you block, if you've got 3 or more characters, you draw a card. Really good for mid-game consistency, keeping your draws up, because this deck struggles to draw sometimes. And yeah, really, really good card. The artwork has always confused me. I know this is his head, but yeah. 2 copies of Penguin. Now, Penguin is a heart pirate, and I'm going to talk about him and Shachi at the same time, because they are the 2 sort of cards that play into each other. So both Penguin and Shachi are blockers, and when you play one out, if you don't have the other in play, you get to play the other out. So if you played out a Penguin, if you don't have a Shachi in play, you can play out the Shachi, and vice versa. These are really good cards. You get 2 blockers for the price of 1, essentially. I'm running 2 copies of Penguin and 3 copies of Shachi, because Shachi is a higher DP or a higher power blocker, so we can block more things. But these are probably dying when they get hit, basically. But they are very, very good. We are playing And just to talk about what sort of plays them, we're playing 4 copies of Beppo. Beppo is a 2k counter, and then give him a Dawn when he attacks, making him 5k. So obviously you've got a leader strike there. You can play out a Heart Pirate other than Beppo, so you can play out a Penguin or play out a Shachi. So potentially you've paid 4 last turn, you give Beppo 1 Dawn on your next turn, swing with him, and you get to play out a Shachi, which then plays out a Penguin. So you're cheating out 2 characters or 1 Dawn, which I think is insanely powerful. I do currently run Penguin at a 3-3 line, but I've made a couple of changes to the list for the Treasure Cup, which I think is quite important. We're playing 4 copies of Nico Mamushi, or Cat Viper, I believe. 1k counter. I don't know why this is the alt art. I clicked on the regular one. 1k counter, on play, rest the 3 cost or less. This is super good for getting rid of Zoros if they've not swung, although they probably have swung to put them into rest mode. And other like low cost guys that could become a threat later game. Play out your Nico, you know, and start swinging over them with your leader. Izu is a 2k counter, 3 cost to play. When you play them out, rest up to one of your characters with a cost 4 or less. Again, super good. 2k counter power is really good. You get to rest more important things. Definitely they need to be played at a 4 of. We've got 2 copies of Yamato, the secret rare. Now if you don't have this, I would recommend just maybe upping your Penguin count and maybe upping your X-Drake or your Basil Hawkins count. But she's not that hard to get. She's got double attack, banish, and 1k counter. When this card hits the field, your opponent's going to go mental trying to get rid of them, because a double attack banish is insanely powerful, and if you get the attack off with that, that's just going to net you positive results, because not only are you breaking 2 of their life at once, but you're banishing their life cards, which means to discard the card instead of being triggered or without being added to hand. So if this stays on the field, great. If it doesn't, you've wasted 5 Dawn, but they've also wasted a turn trying to clear it, which is always important. I would always look at Yamato as a bait card in more ways than one. When she comes down, do not expect her to stay on the field. If she does, that's cool, but your main just want your opponent to focus on getting rid of them. And we're playing 4 copies of Trafalgar Law. Now, Law's a blocker, super good, 5 cost, great, get him out, he will tank hits and you'll be able to swing and stuff as well, although you don't particularly want him to. And what you can do with Law is, on play, when you may return one of your characters to your hand to play out a 3 cost or less. So you could, if you've already got a blocker Law out that's suspended, you could play out down another one, bounce that Law back to your hand, and then play out anything that is 3 cost or less. So again, you could play out a Shachi, which plays out a Penguin. You could play out an Izu, which rests some guys, or a Nico Mamushi. You can use Bonnie's effect more than once per turn if you did that. He's a super strong card, highly recommend it. The alt art is like £80, which is crazy. But yeah, definitely play 4 Law. I've went back on and forth on the X-Drake. 2 copies, KO, 4 cost or less. I originally didn't have him in, and then I took him out, and then I put him back in. I've put him in again for the Rush Zoro matchup. Playing this guy out just pops the Rush Zoro, so what you should do is try to swing over the Rush Zoro first. They will probably try to protect it, force them to waste some cards out of their hand. Try to keep what you're swinging over the Zoro with close to 5k, maybe 6k, so they do try to counter out of it. That way you can get cards out of their hand, and then play down the X-Drake to pop it. Super good. It helps to keep the tempo, because Zoro is a really strong deck, and it is a really hard deck to beat, especially once they get up and running. And if they keep their guys on board, they're just going to keep swinging, especially since the leader Zoro, as you've seen in the previous deck profile, if you've watched, it gives everything plus 1k power when it's got a Dawn attached to it. Crazy. We've got Basil Hawkins, no counter power, 2 of these, 6k, give him a Dawn, and then once per turn, if this character battles your opponent's character, set this card as active. So remember, this doesn't count if you attack their leader, but if you attack one of their characters at the end of the battle, so it doesn't restand right away. It's not a when attacking skill, it is at the end of the battle skill, basically. So everything has to go through, and then if Basil Hawkins survives the fight, he restands himself and you can swing again. It's a once per turn. If your opponent blocks, it also triggers. So if you swing at their life for game and they block, which, you know, they probably would want to, because they are then battling a character, they restand, and that is how it works. And then finally for the characters, we've got 3 copies of Eustass Captain Kidd. This card's nuts. Give him a Dawn. If he's rested, your opponent can only attack Eustass Captain Kidd, the character, not the leader, the character. So basically your endgame strategy is get this out, keep him suspended. You can activate his main effect to play out a 1 character card with a cost of 3 or less. Once again, the Shachi Penguin combo is super good here, or just get out more blockers. Once you get this guy out, make sure you've got blockers on your board, because the only thing that your opponent can attack is this card, and then you just need to keep blocking around it, even for 1 turn or 2. It will help keep the tempo, because then you just start swinging with it and your leader, and that's when you start taking advantage of your leader's effect to restand, because you just need to swing with this, keep the blockers on your board, or get out more blockers, and then just restand yourself with Kidd. Super, super good. Really, really strong. Don't run it as a 4. I don't think you need it as a 4. I see these all the time. You only really need 1 out. If you get 2 out, then even better, but it's not a priority. I'm playing 4 copies of Paradise Waterfall, which is your plus 2k counter power. So what you can potentially do is give your Kidd plus 2k power and then block with something else, and then you can restand your Kidd, or basically you can block with something and then restand it, whilst giving it counter power, so it survives the fight after the block, and then it can then block again. Really good card, and then its trigger is also pretty good as well. 2 copies of Punk Gibson. This is the stronger one, plus 4k power, and then you rest a 4 cost or less. The second bit's not as relevant, because people should be playing in sequence. They shouldn't be playing a card out and then attacking with something else unless there's a reason for it. They should be attacking first and then playing other cards to ensure things like this don't happen. That's optimal play. You will get players that just do things in the wrong sort of sequence anyway. Try to avoid that if possible, but you know, if it happens, it happens. But yeah, 1 copy of Straw Sword, just to rest anything. This will help to rest like the big guys that your opponents put out, that you can then swing over with by giving a lot of Dawn to any of your characters, really. And 1 copy of Demon Face. I was back and forth on Demon Face, but I like the KO2 rested characters with a cost of 5 or less. This is basically in for the red matchup to help control the tempo, or the red-green Law matchup, or the Luffy matchup, just to help control the tempo of the fight. And if you need to, you just spend 6 of your Dawn to KO 2 other guys, and I think it's really strong. And then these are all Supernova's cards, bar Paradise Waterfall, so you can search them with your Bonnie. But that's it for the green deck profile, guys. Let me know what you're playing, and we'll have more coming for you this week. Hope you have a wonderful day. Enjoy your testing, and I hope to see you at the Cup or online events coming up. I'll see you shortly. Bye.